Next up, we have Nicola Goodall. Nicola is a doula who works with women to build community knowledge about birth. Nicola first began to support families around birth 20 years ago, gaining a deeper understanding of society's attitude towards childbirth experiences. Nicola thinks those perceptions need to change. So I welcome Nicola and her talk, Reframing Birth.
So I have what I think is the most fantastic job in the world, because I get to hang out with people when they're growing their babies, birthing their babies, feeding their babies, and falling in love with their babies. So when we had this remit of seeing things differently, my immediate thought was, over the last 20 years while I've been having my babies and watching this incredible thing happening, it's very different to how we talk about it in our society. So we have to talk today and think today a little bit about, why we view it so differently to what the reality is. So instead of it just being me wanging on and everybody saying, well, that's her opinion, but I know it's different because I watch the telly and it's different on the telly, I did a little bit of research and I asked a whole load of different kinds of people of different ages, what was your view of childbirth before you had a baby? And the answers rolled in: pain, terror, death, pain. The most disturbing one was somebody said that their mum had told them it was like having your hips ripped off by pliers. I'll be lucky to survive it with a pulse. And the odd one said, well, it was incredible. My mum said it was incredible, so I'm looking forward to it. So why do we have this opinion before we have a baby? I started to think about it, and I think, we've sanitized birth and death, and we've taken it out of the home. We don't witness our mother giving birth to our baby brother upstairs anymore, or take a cake next door to the woman that's just had a baby and see her kind of a little bit tired and sweaty and happy and beautiful, and so on. So I started to look at the media. The media is how we learn about birth. And I started to think about the two most common births that young people will have consumed in the media in the last 5 years. The first one was The Walking Dead. Block your ears now if you haven't got this far. The small boy of around 10 cuts the belly of his mother and brings out the baby and then shoots her dead in her head. He's about 9. Something like that. And then we have Twilight. Many, many young people all across the world, millions of people, this will be their first exposure to childbirth, and the baby's pretty much killing her from the inside out, and she pretty much dies, and they manage to bring her back to life. And we have documentary, which is great. Documentary is great, but it's not always a true look on the world of something, and this is One Born Every Minute. We're into, 4 seasons, something like this. And every season consistently has shown men as complete idiots. No good at supporting women at all. It's cut for comedy and drama. It's not really cut for reality. There's a couple of men in this audience today that I've seen support their partners through birth in a very intelligent, very loving, very supportive way. And that's often what I see. And then we have Call the Midwife. Everybody loves Call the Midwife because it's a bit more real, and we see the story and we see the reality and we see what birth is like in the home with people that love you and the impact it has on the family. We also have societal and cultural norms. What we do, we sit down next to somebody on a park bench or on a bus and we say, "You look gigantic." When my next door neighbor had her baby, it was awful. She nearly died. When I had my baby, I had 500 stitches in my vagina. It was terrible. I never had sex again, and then we got divorced, and it's just full of horror story after horror story after horror story. And alternatively, if you're in the rare experience of somebody sitting down next to you on a train and saying, "You look incredible, you're beautiful, and when I had my babies, I grew as a woman, it was religious, it was amazing," we're edging away and thinking they're a little bit odd. So our societal and cultural norm is, to perpetuate this thing that we're seeing in Twilight and The Walking Dead. This guy here is Dr. Simpson, because you're probably wondering, because I put him up so quickly. He's a doctor from Scotland, from Edinburgh, practiced in our local hospital, and he is famous for bringing anesthesia into childbirth. When Dr. Simpson discovered at one of his drug-taking parties that we might offer chloroform to labouring women and it might help them out a little bit, he brought it into the local hospital, and a campaign ensued of the good people of Edinburgh to have him executed for blasphemy, because women are supposed to suffer in childbirth for Eve's sins. This is a whole nother talk to have on TED somewhere at some point. So many things are educating people on what childbirth is like. I also asked all these people, what was your reality? Tell me about after you had your baby and describe childbirth to me. And yes, the odd person said pain, obviously, we expect this, but it was a very side issue. So most of them said, it was incredible, it was amazing, I felt really strong. Yes, there was pain, but I got through it. My husband was amazing, we grew as a couple. It was a really, really beautiful set of answers. Actually, not one person came forward and said, it was a total nightmare, I hated it, from beginning to end, I'm never having another child. This is the experience that most people have when they have their baby. It's emotional, they're loved, they're growing, they're bringing their child into the world, and things are changing for them. So why? Why is it an incredible experience? If you look very carefully, I noticed the other day, this midwife has a great tattoo, as they often do. And she has on her arm the molecular structure of something called oxytocin, which we all create throughout our life, otherwise we're in trouble, because it's the hormone of love. So we look at our mothers, and we create a huge amount. We have sex, we create a huge amount. We need it to connect with each other, to have intimate experiences. We need it to have self-esteem, to really fall in love with society, with our parents, with our friends. Very, very important. In terms of childbirth, what we're doing is we're helping our womb to contract. It's physiologically making your womb to contract and making you fall in love with your baby, which is a very useful process. We also produce lots and lots and lots of opiates and endorphins. I once arrived at somebody's birth, and she was about 20 minutes away from having her baby, so she's really in the throes of as hard as it's going to get. And I crept into her living room, and you can never assume what's happening for somebody when they're having their baby. So I crept in, put my things down, turned to her and said, how's it going? And she looked up at me and said, I feel like I've taken ecstasy. And continued with the process, and then had her baby a little while longer. This is how many women look when they have their babies. We also produce prolactin, which is the chemical that helps us to produce milk, but it also makes us subservient and obedient and quick to act in the moment, which is a very useful part of the process. So put all those things together, and birthing can be the most profound initiation to spirituality that a woman can ever have. She can completely change her life, and many women do speak in terms of it changing their life. So how about we create little peaceful beings like this, and we teach people that this is probably going to be the reality. You're going to be flooded with love, and you're going to have your baby in front of you, mirroring that love back to you. How about we teach young men and women in school that you could have orgasmic birth, that could bond you with your partner and have an incredible time having your baby? How about when we sit down next to somebody on a park bench, we talk about this scenario, that this is the possibility? And how about we teach our children? I have my children watching this today, and my daughter sat in front of me. How about we show them these images and we turn off The Walking Dead, or we criticize Twilight, maybe let them watch One Born Every Minute and force them to watch The Midwife, because this is what we need to be expecting, a transformational experience. Thank you.